Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nigel Ridpath from Oaka Studio, and we're going to do a session today on looking at how AI can be used in streamlining the Microsoft Partner Operating Model. And what we mean by that is we're not going to talk today about how you can take AI to market, but it's much more about how we're seeing practices at Microsoft partners change their operating model with the use of AI. I've got a couple of uh, Oka colleagues with me today. I have Lee Baker, I have Joel Abbott, and a special guest, customer enablement and change management expert, Janet Robb. And we'll get into a little bit of a panel discussion in a few minutes. So if we have a think about what we're beginning to see, and I have to say the four of us were chatting before we came on air today. We're not seeing many partners being particularly advanced with this yet. I think people are struggling to work out exactly how to change business models, which have been very entrenched for potentially even decades now. But this is what we're going to be seeing, we believe, when we look at how practices are beginning to develop. The idea being that your competitors aren't beating you because they're brighter at implementing solutions or they have better tech. Actually, they're beating you because they don't need to work as hard to create the same results, so that they've got a profitability motive that they can begin to execute on, and that's where we're seeing the kind of first mover advantage coming. So when we're looking at AI and how it might change our own businesses, I think it's wrong to think about it as a product strategy. It's more analogous to being an operating system upgrade. So what do I mean by that? Well, when we've been using an operating system for a long time, we get used to its quirks and foibles. We learn to work within its limitations. But what we think AI can bring to Microsoft partners is an upgrade to that, whereby we've got new features and tools, and you could say even some bug fixes to the way we've been operating, that we need to consider how we're going to be using some of those upgrades to improve our businesses. So one way of looking at this is looking at the partner operating model that you're working under. We wonder whether we could imagine this operating in a way that's as smart as the solutions that we implement for our customers, so that almost we're using some of that automation that is possible through agentic AI to improve some of the areas that we operate in as a partner. So whether that is kind of going around these in a circle, looking at our compliance status. So having AI tools that are looking across our regulatory adherence, data privacy, security profiles, looking at whether that's all not just in process in place from a kind of standards point of view, but it's actually being adhered to on a day-to-day basis. Looking at that pipeline, looking at pipelines moving forward, rather than, dare I say it, the kind of guesswork and uh, and inaccuracy that maybe some of us have got used to looking at pipeline probability when we're reliant on people putting in their own probabilities and sales stages, but actually getting the getting AI models to give us a more accurate reflection of where we are with our pipeline. So looking at things like customer health metrics, so what do our clients think of us at any one point? What is that that health? What is the risk of them churning at any one point? Using predictive models around that area, and then alerts in systems have been around forever, but what we're talking about here is actually using AI to actually act on some of those alerts to either predict that they're going to come before they happen, or to act on them when they do. And these are the kind of things that we're beginning to see some of the partners that we work with consider in terms of potential moves in their operating model.
So I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes before we go into the main conversation, just talking about some of the things that are going on within industry. So, and how that might kind of affect the operating models of partners and things to think about. So one of the things that was really interesting for me is Accenture has just appointed a new CPO, or Chief Products Officer. There's a guy called Senthil Ramani. Prior to this role, he was running the global data and AI practice at Accenture and their AI-driven IP. So it's a real reinforcement and progression of how the biggest consulting, or one of the biggest consulting companies in the world, are changing how they think they're going to have to deliver value, deliver service, and act as a business moving forward. So I've seen a few blog posts and things on this as well, but I think it's going to give them much more of an IP focus. So the biggest consulting company in the world, whatever it is, 750,000 people or something, that are mostly billing hours and billing projects and everything managed that way, to how they're now going to have to shift that model forward. And it's something we're all of us can, as systems implementers or as services on the side of our IP businesses, how we're going to have to think about that value and the productization of that value moving forward with these tools. Because otherwise I feel we're going to get left a bit behind. And that was kind of the biggest kind of marker of that in industry that I've seen really happening right now. And this leads into kind of the second point that I've got here, which is the services via software approach. So as I've said before, a lot of us have spent our working lives thinking, cool, I need to be able to get more people billable. I need to think about how we can leverage other things. And we all know that products and recurring revenue are a great idea, but in this new world of AI, how can we bring those two things together? So how can we have some AI infused products? And I'm not just talking about churning out a chatbot or something, but I'm talking about the AI guided tours, the AI learning journeys, or the AI journeys to progress someone through whatever tooling that happens to be, to build things themselves, or whatever that may happen to look like, to mature something within the business, wherever you are providing value as an implementer. And that's going to change how our teams look, not just in terms of, yes, we're not going to have as many people billing hours potentially in the future, but also what does that skill set look like? This is going to be much more of a consulting led delivery. I feel like businesses might look more like ISVs or product businesses in the future, because you'll have product teams, you'll be building out product that is your go to market, your 80% product. And then it's going to be much more of a consulting heavy movement alongside that. For, I don't know what the percentage will be, but if it's 80-20, then 20% kind of consulting to enable your clients with that as well, because the knowledge will be the IP, the knowledge, the value is going to be in those toolings as well. And this brought about another thought about the industry for me. I was at an AI event yesterday with the chief AI officer at Atos, and she came with some really great insights about how this is moving. She was talking about the frameworks that they use and about how they would set themselves and their customers up for success with AI. So thinking about things we all have seen, so strategy, data, and governance. But then wider than that, it's the enablement piece, which I know Janet will talk about a little bit later, but it sort of needs that framework to move things forward. And this is where the sort of semi tongue-in-cheek low code again kind of comment comes in here for me. I'm not trying to suggest that technologies are the same in any way, or that the outputs or impact on life are going to be the same as low code, but we've sort of been here before. I spent a bunch of time 6-7 years ago trying to get people to look at Power Platform, not as a, I can build you an app on this thing, but as a revolutionary platform for building your technology moving forward, which then kind of moved us into how we wrote the adoption framework for that at the time, right? How do we cover enablement, governance, security, platform management, enterprise architecture, data, and how do we help a big organization or a small organization adopt that at the right scale and level for them? And that the AI readiness and the AI tooling feels very similar to me. So rather than kind of get worried about where our businesses might be going, I feel like internally we probably have the skill sets because we've been using them across other technologies to be able to implement this stuff internally. Yes, there is the brave new world of it's not just ones and zeros that we've understood in the same way, but we do have a lot of the skill sets that are going to enable our businesses and enable client businesses to be able to use these tools in the future. So these technologies do run in cycles and do look the types of consulting you may have done in the past, how we can re-leverage that again for this kind of new world as well. It made me think about it so much, to be honest with you, that I dug out the Power Platform adoption framework that we wrote, I think it was 7 years ago now. And that was how we took Power Platform in our own business and into client businesses at the time. And whilst I'm not suggesting this is identical to how AI should be deployed, a lot of the similar cycles are there, right? There's probably 80% of that you could just change a few bits of wording and it would apply to enabling AI within our own organization, making sure we're safe, scalable, secure, and moving it forward. So whilst I'm not going to dwell on that, I would say I do think there will be a lot of skill sets internally that people are not leveraging to move this forward. Nigel?
Yeah, thanks for that, Lee. I mean, something else occurred to me about some of the reasons why the partners that have been around for a while, we're not seeing kind of adopt this in the way that they engage with their customers. I'm wondering a bit again about kind of going back in history and looking at where we can see some parallels. When kind of cloud hit about 15 years ago, the first people to take advantage of it were organizations that were born in the cloud. So they didn't have to make that kind of big leap from supporting tin and doing operating systems upgrades and whatever. They were selling CRM online out of the box and being able to get on with it. And I wonder whether it'll be interesting to track organizations that maybe don't exist or haven't existed for more than 6 months or a year or so, who are going to be kind of born in AI or AI native and are going to be coming up with ways of delivering solutions that are AI native. It'll be an interesting one to track, and certainly if we see any of those, we'll be bringing you examples in the future. But we've got 4 questions that I want to bring Joel and Janet into, and the first one is about looking at your current partner operating model and some thoughts and ideas about how you can map the use of AI into that model. So, Janet, if I could start with you and you could give us a few thoughts on this one.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. I'm very flattered. I'm going to pick up on your third word in that sentence, and it's a map. So how do you map AI to your partner operating model? You know, when you're a wee bit lost and you're on Google Maps, the very first thing you need to know is where you are. That's the very first thing you're asked. What is your location? And I'm going to get you to wherever you want to go. The problem we have is that People are thinking they want to go somewhere, but they don't know where they actually are. They don't know the start point. And what I mean by the start point is, where does everybody in the room think we are? I do what's called a health check or state of the nation, and I make it really funny. I do it with a tree and get everybody to put themselves on the tree where they are. And I have yet to run one of these tree sessions where you are, how you're feeling, and everybody be on the same branch in the same tree. So the point being is, what I'm getting at is that your organization, the very first thing is, do we know where we all are? Are we all feeling the same way? Do we understand what the word, are you ready for this? AI means. Because I've been in rooms where after 45 minutes I've clocked that these two people think they're saying the same thing, but they're not. So my very first thing would say, find your location, find your heat, how people are feeling. There's a massive, massive thing around fear. And people think, oh, it's fear of taking my jobs. It's absolute nonsense. Just because people are in an IT industry does not mean that everybody understands what AI means. It means so much and means that people are getting confused. So my first thing is work out where you are, work out and get everybody on the same page, and then you can work out where you want to go. And by the way, that's a big job. That's a very, very big job. It's not a small job. It's a it's a day away. It's 2 days away. It's a workshop to the point that your head's going to melt. And if you don't do it, you're never going to get where you need to go because you don't know where your starting point is. So that would be
And
my first analogy.
and Janet, when you're doing those exercises, um, do you find that people are over ambitious with their target operating model, or not ambitious enough?
Oh, wow. Absolutely over ambitious because, again, because they don't understand the depths of AI. The first thing there that Lee said, we look at governance, we look at data, and we look at enablement. It's the three key areas of AI. Governance is as big as enablement. The actual producty bit in the middle, it's a lot smaller.
Hmm.
People aren't clocking the damage that the use of AI could do. The data leaks, the visibility of data that, the analogy I've heard many times, which I really, really like, is you have a dust sheet on your bed and you lift up and you look under the bed and it looks clean. But then you put a torch in and all of a sudden you see all these dust balls because you see the light that's going in there. So the thing is, those dust balls were always there, but the use of AI allows us and the company to see it. So we really, really need to focus on understanding the governance. And people forget that bit. They go, oh, look at all the jizzery pokery, and we get excited. And they think, oh, we can do this, this, and this. And I'm going, well, who's red teaming this? Who understands the security issues here? Who understands the data issues? So those are a lot bigger than people realize. So I think they're over ambitious. And sometimes we need to put, and this is not me, well, actually, this is me. I am kind of safety conscious, and I'm putting little safety vests on people with little hats and little yellow jackets and saying, guys, we need to calm down and work out where we are. What are the consequences? So, for example, just sticking a chatbot on a website, that can be done in 2 minutes. But what is the consequences if we don't red team it, block it, and do everything right? So, in my opinion, everybody is over ambitious because they forget about the governance and they forget about the consequences.
Yeah. Okay. Joel, I'm going to bring you in on the next point that we're going to bring up, if Lee can get us that one, and to actually look at how you're seeing stuff done in your experience out there working with partners. So, do any of these resonate, or is it actually something else that you're seeing happen?
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of this resonates, to be honest with you, particularly with working with partners over the last probably year, 2 years even. I think Janet's analogy, just to jump off that one of the Google Maps, we're going to be sparring for analogies here, Janet. I think one of the big problems that partners have is there's always, or there seems to be, someone in the business, usually at a high level, who's AI obsessed. Everything can be AI. Yeah, I've watched a YouTube video on this, let's do this. I've literally heard that discussion in senior meetings multiple times. But the trouble with that is that because everything is AI, companies seem to be tagging AI onto the end of biscuit names because it raises the price of things. Perception is key, right? So your teams, that's where this fear of AI can come in, because all they hear is that AI is going to make everything brilliant and automate stuff and take over people's jobs. And then in the same token, they have senior management going, let's AI everything. Actually, that is a bit like Janet's analogy of the Google Maps, where you get a bit lost. It can also be like having a bunch of people in a bus and you're driving and they don't know where they're going. So you need to make sure that when you are implementing these tools, you take people with you, take your whole practice with you. I've seen some examples of that recently, whereby I was working with a partner, brilliant partner, very forward thinking, looking to adopt AI internally to do some really cool stuff that would dramatically increase their productivity in their sort of partner activities. But there was a couple of individuals they hadn't quite communicated the thinking behind the statements and the strategy to. And all it took was 20 minutes in a room with them to show them how AI could help them in their tasks today. And they went from deeply concerned to on fire. They wanted it, and they wanted it today because this was amazing. Why haven't we had this before? So it just taught me really that actually, with all these cool things we can do, and there's absolutely tons of things we can do with a whole range of different AI platforms, you have to take people with you. Because if you don't, that's where the fear comes.
So are you seeing? I mean, we put up a couple of kind of use cases here where we can imagine, and we're starting to see people use it. What about from the actual solution delivery side itself? Have you seen anyone use this to either improve the way that they are delivering solutions to customers, or speeding them up?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's interesting looking at your list of use cases there. They are the kind of standard ones that we think of, yeah. How we're going to automate reporting, etc. What I'm seeing a lot more is using it to streamline, is a terrible word, but you get the point. The kind of day-to-day tasks. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you have clients come in and said, we've got this project, we've got a whole load of documentation for it. We've gone away and done all our analysis, which, bless, they've done produced all this documentation for you. You've had 2 or 3 meetings with them on Teams. You're going to pay a BA to sit and go through all of that, read all their documents, come up with a load of questions. What we're finding, particularly solution architects are doing now, and BAs together, is putting all that into one of the AI tools, be it ChatGPT, Claude, whatever one, create a project for it. So it contains all that knowledge. Then using ChatGPT, build your project-specific instructions. So where you're telling it, I want you to talk to me like this. I want you to give me these insights. And there's some awesome prompts that are very simple and easy to use. What it then does is it can say, this is my understanding of where the customer wants to go. Now, that is not me advocating for just dumping stuff in ChatGPT and spitting out the output, okay? So don't worry about that. But what it can effectively become is a third colleague in that loop. So you want to say, well, present me a solution for this piece. And it's not that you copy and paste that, but you use that to bounce off ideas. Another tip, just for anyone who does this already, it's really useful to say to your AI tool, be brutal but constructive. Use those words, be brutal but constructive, and you will find it's a lot more helpful. And those are the things that I'm seeing more day to day, and they are the time-saving things. They are helping people get high-level documents out, ROMs for projects out so much quicker. and it's a differentiator for them and other partners.
And actually, presumably, in enhancing the quality of the solution, it just might come up with an idea that, yes, you've got 20, 30 years worth of experience, and it's there in the back of your head, but just this time you forgot to mention this thing that they hadn't asked for, and it's brought that out, and you end up with a better quality solution.
And do you know what? One of the benefits, sorry, I'll shut up in a minute, Nigel, but one of the benefits that I think exactly the point that you've just made is if you meet a D365 or Power Platform solution architect who say they are an expert in every element of the platform, they're lying, because it's so huge, you can't be. So where AI can come in is you can say, I'm very well versed in this, but this solution connects with, I don't know, whatever in Power BI or certain Azure services. You can say, I don't know as much about that. Go away and do deep research on that part for me and it will bring back all the references, etc. And you can then verify that, of course, and add it into your documentation. So it can massively plug those knowledge gaps where you're not the expert that people like to think you are.
Yeah. And as we keep bringing up whenever we're talking to people about this, you've got to remember that human beings are still so much better than AI at so many things, and that's where we need to be retaining the humans in the process. I'm just thinking Lee and I are working on a separate project at the moment that we are using a third-party AI to effectively help us workshop something. And it's great. We found it immensely useful, and it's definitely come up with suggestions that we hadn't thought of.
Yeah, so I just want to jump in on there's a couple of comments in the chat here about kind of what you were saying and making sure that AI should be utilized to assist us and enhance us, but not wholesale replace us. And it was one of the things I was going to jump in and say anyway, absolutely. We should be outsourcing the work, but not outsourcing the responsibility. We should always have this human in the loop until this is tried and tested so many hundred or thousands of times that we can then be sure that we can take the human out of the loop, depending on the size and scale of the automation that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, Lee. Perhaps we can go on to the third question here.
Just before you go on to the third question, Nigel, there was a question Andy Ranson had in the chat. I didn't understand it 100%, so I just wanted to pause and ask Andy, could you come off mute and expand on your question for us, please?
I'm actually not sure that people can unmute themselves here tomorrow, but maybe Andy can drop something else in the chat, and kind of you can answer that there, or we can bring it up in a minute, and maybe we'll do it after that.
Lovely. I'll see if I can unmute him in the meantime afterwards.
Cool. Thank you. While I'm chatting anyway, maybe I just take this one, Nigel, as a start point. So one of the things we spend a lot of time doing for our clients, Microsoft partners, is about understanding the designations, the specializations, the tick boxes, the areas of partner center, the programmatic side of how that needs to be pieced together. And it was just something we wanted to include here because it feels like there is some tooling that we can start to use to bring some of that to life. So it's a bit of a headache of a process. No one particularly enjoys doing it for the most part, and there is forever things that are forgotten. So one of the things that I just wanted to raise around supporting your designation management or specialization management is maybe we can look at some tools whilst we ensure we manage the designation like a project, and it should have its own resource to be able to manage that over time. How the resource that may be managing that, how can we start to supplement that with some AI tooling as well and try and spot some of the gaps that might be very manual to find otherwise. So I'm thinking things like automating evidence collection. That might be for if there's co-sale deals that we need to enter some specific information for, or if it's proof of execution for other funding or something. We should be able to start automating that. We should be able to be pulling out project files and generating that automatically, as well as managing and alerting people when that has not been done in a timely manner. I feel like we should also be able to compare the certifications that are needed for designations and specializations, and where the fit gap is on that. And maybe if there's external HR or skilling systems that are used, maybe we can look at the discrepancies between what people are saying they've got in one system and another when they're not integrated a lot of the time. That's something we see. And one of those other, in a similar vein, looking at some of that partner center data. So if we're looking at getting designations or specializations where we need net new customer ads, or we need usage growth across months and years, how can we be pulling, say, information out of DevOps so that we can see what clients look like, bigger clients where there's new apps that have gone through deployment and things, and checking that particular client is flashing up in like our monthly active users growth or net new clients and places like that. So I feel like there is tooling that we can now use and start to implement that's going to take some of the headache away of the managing of these designations. So that, for me, I know that's that sort of number 3 sort of fits into number 2 a little bit as well, but that would be where I would see some of the obvious wins for managing those designations, with it being less of a headache for people.
Yeah, I almost have this kind of Nirvana-like picture of AI tooling be able to predict when maybe you're about to lose a designation or a specialization, then look through your pipeline and say, if you won that deal, then you're not going to lose it. So that kind of like, bringing all those aspects together, and certainly be a prize for the first partner organization that sorts that one out. Let's just move on to our last question, because I think in some respects this one we may all have similar views, or there's, I think, potentially we might have some differing views that we can bring to bear. Janet, when you're looking at this and perhaps doing those target operating model type exercises, how do you suggest people ensure the right result, the right outcome?
So I always find it quite funny with organizations that go, this is my customer strategy for AI. And then I'll ask them, what is your strategy for your organization of AI? Because to be honest with you, your customer strategy should be built in to your strategy of AI. One of the first things, another thing I want to remind people of is, if you are an organization that is an IT organization and your job is to maybe upsell or sell AI to your customers, do you know what else you've got potentially? A receptionist. You also have an HR department. You also have a sales division. You're also an organization that has to get on the AI bus to come with you. And people are forgetting that. I loved Joel's analogy. I really did laugh, because I've seen it so many times where one person gets super excited and then runs for it and drives the bus, and everybody's whizzing all over the place on the bus. So practical first steps is, remember, you're an organization as a whole, and you can't split your strategy out, because you're in, get me exactly what Lee was just talking. Let's talk about specializations. So your specializations you need internally, okay? You're getting your specializations for your AI strategy internally. So potentially you can then build or use those specializations to build something for your customers in AI. They're still connected. They're still done but they're done within your own AI strategy. So my suggestion is, first of all, find everybody on the same page, get everybody on the same page. I talk about creating an AI council, an AI, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it's not one person driving the bus who's got super excited. I want you to look at your business. I want you to say, who needs to be sitting on this council? And it might be Jimmy, who might be quite technically low down the hierarchy channel, but Jimmy's smart as. Jimmy knows the insides and the out, and we need to listen to Jimmy. And it might be Claire from HR, because we need to understand the risks of our internal data getting out, and we need to understand what our new policies need to be. And then we might need blah, blah, blah. So you need to work out who's on your AI strategy, your AI council. because all of these people need to have their voices heard. And this is the key. See that person driving the bus who's got super excited, who's usually very high up in the organization? Buck him off the bus or buck her off the bus. The problem is we need to have Jimmy's voice used. We need Claire's voice. They're as important as the person driving that bus. So your council needs to be a safe place that their voices have equality. Let's take an AI council across the whole world by the end of this, because we need equality to have, because you can't be too scared to say what you really think. Your very first step is to get that in place. Then you put in place exactly what you're going to do in that council. What is your jobs? How often you're going to be meeting? How often are you going to revisit your risk register? You then build the AI strategy, not your customer AI strategy, not your internal. It all gets linked, and you start with your vision, and then you work with your initiatives and your objectives and everything to feed that vision. That takes time. People think the word strategy takes 5 minutes. It doesn't. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of Tipex. I'm just using my analogy of we need to restart. And then you start to have to roll it out across your practice. And guess what that takes? Time and education and element, because we need to make sure that Jimmy's and we need to make sure the Claires are on board. I did an analogy in a company once, and I went up to, it's called a health check, and I went up to somebody in a company and I said, what is AI? And they said, TikTok filters. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
No.
The way they worked and what they did in the business and the social media they did, they were right. And then I asked somebody else, and my ears bled because they told me about large language models. And they weren't wrong either. But you need to be able to get your entire organization to understand what you're doing and what it means for the organization as a whole. Remember, your organization is not bricks and a front door. Your organization is your Jimmys and your Claires, your people, and they need to be able to articulate what you're doing. So there's some points, and I bet nobody does them. They all talk about doing them, but a lot of people are running and driving buses.
You make such great points, Janet, and change was always explained to me. There were two options: you can do incremental change, or you can do a paradigm shift. And I'm not sure in this case necessarily either of those are going to quite work at the moment. I'd appreciate the views of the panel here. So I think the evolution, I think those little chips away are not going to get people where they need to be quickly enough. And they probably, to your point, Janet, won't take people along with them either. So then you do paradigm shift. And, you know, probably the best example in our whole ecosystem of this at the moment is what Microsoft have done, which is lay off tens of thousands of people and then say, and then we'll work out how AI is going to get, you know, catch us up again. You know, okay, well, that's another way of doing it. Not sure I'd recommend it, but a model I've been more persuaded by recently is this idea of burning ships. So it says at this point in the future, and you can put a time frame on it, let's call it 12 months, we are going to be a business that doesn't have this function anymore, that does this in this way in future. Maybe, and Lee and I were talking about this earlier, never bills by hours ever again. Whatever that target operating model you have, you say in that time frame when there is no option to go back. We have burnt the ships. So what have we got to do in that 12-month period to make sure that we can make that sustainable? And as I say, that's a model that I've found particularly useful. Going to leave Lee to pick up any remaining questions and to wrap up.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing I would say on that, just to kind of wrap up on those points, is for me, I think you're completely right. I don't think we can wholesale change because we don't take people on the journey, because the technology is too impactful for that and it affects people too much. But there isn't the option to stand still. I mean, I think the billable hours one is going to be such an influential one in our typical industry, right, is most services businesses billed by hour or blocks of hours, or however you piece that together, even if you do projects, but it's basically internally managed by hours, it amounts to the same thing. And when some companies start to work differently, which is why I raised the Accenture example earlier on, that's not going to be an option to run in that way anymore, because the business won't be there, because the competitors will be working differently, which will be more attractive to clients. In terms of a reasonable step forward for me, one of the things that I always try and think about and impart on people is how do we do this in a connected way, right? Everyone's got their AI tools, everyone's got Copilot or Fathom or Read AI or whatever other note takers I've seen kind of come into the chat here. And everyone's got some different bits of automation, and everyone's got their ChatGPT endpoints if they want to use those and things. But the number of times I see information just die, loads of actions come out the back of a meeting, and they exist in a Copilot summary but never go anywhere else. How do we actually transform the business rather than just create more noise and a useful summary maybe for one person? So how do we tangibly move our processes forward so that our businesses get not just the productivity, but the change of operating system, or the ability to change their operating system, that we're going to need over the coming months and years, I would suggest. So with that, I think we'll kind of wrap on the information here. So if this has been of any interest and you want to talk further, we're always interested in hearing how people are changing their business as well, internally and with clients. So please do ping us some information. We can chat over other ideas there at that point as well. I don't know if there are any other questions that we kind of need to answer in here, but there's been some really good points raised by a few people in the chat as well. So do take a read on here and kind of connect with people. And the point of what we do here at Oaka Studio is to support partners in the wider ecosystem and bring partners together. It's important for us to bring the partners together, which is kind of why I've landed on this slide. But what we want to do is get people talking. So if people have made comments in the chat that you think are really interesting, please do reach out to them. Please do grab their names from there and reach out on LinkedIn or wherever else, or if you know them, start the conversation, start thinking about this. And one of the other places we'll be talking about this again is the Partner Pulse events that we run every quarter. So it may have been mentioned before, but I mention it again. We've run these Partner Pulse events. I think we've done 11 or 12 now of these. We run them every quarter. They've often jumped around London in weird and wonderful locations. But what we've decided to do now is to kind of fix the location. So it's Story Club, which is next door to Microsoft's office in Kingdom Street. So we have that for the next 3 events now. We did the last one there a couple of weeks ago, whenever that was. 8th of January is going to be the next one. So if you want to put a placeholder in your calendar, and then I'm sure we'll be sending out emails to kind of invite people to that. But this will be when
sorry, just to say, it's that's actually the wrong date. It's the 28th of January.
The 28th of January.
Yes, yeah.
Apologies, that was not very useful, was it? 28th of January. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be sending emails about that as well, with registration links. But if you want to put a placeholder in, we try and bring people together at all levels within partners, less for a technology discussion, but more for a business discussion, and sometimes turns into a therapy session, sometimes turns into a go-to-market session about how we can partner to partner and move things forward. But it'd be great to see some people at that as well. So thanks everyone, and I will leave it at that. But the 28th is the next event there, and we'll be in contact about the next Oaka Partner Insights event as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for your time.
Yes, thank you to the team on the panel today, and thank you for attending another Oaka Partner Insights.
Thanks everyone. Goodbye.